We so often think of history as something found exclusively in thick, dusty textbooks detailing massive wars and sprawling empires. But the truth is, the most compelling stories are actually hidden in the everyday paperwork left behind by totally ordinary people. Welcome to This Explainer, where today we are going to act as historical detectives. We're going to piece together a surprisingly rich family narrative using absolutely nothing but the clues left behind in censuses, local directories, and legal documents. So let's dive right into this core mystery and ask ourselves a rather profound question. How will future generations reconstruct our lives from the paper trails we leave behind? Seriously, when historians look back 150 years from now, what exactly are they going to see? To understand just how much a simple paper trail can reveal, we're going to trace the footprints of a single family from 19th century Canada. By learning how to kind of read between the lines of these historical documents, we'll uncover a world of love, hardship, everyday hustle, and survival. To anchor our investigation today, we're looking at the family tree of a 19th century Canadian family, focusing specifically on our main subject, a man named James Abraham Kemp. Born to Abraham and Sarah Kemp, James is really the central figure in this genealogical puzzle. And while a family tree might initially look like, just a boring network of names and dates, every single one of these boxes represents a deeply lived human experience. James isn't just a name slapped in the middle of a chart. He's our gateway into understanding what life was really like in early Ontario. Mapping out the major milestones of James's life transforms a single name on a page into a sprawling 71-year journey spanning the 19th century. We start with his birth in May of 1831 over in Prince Edward County. Fast forward to 1855, and records show him settling in Delhi, Ontario. Then we see his marriage to Mary Jane Sovereen in 1861, and finally his passing in 1902 from acute indigestion and heart failure at the age of 71. But look, dates only give us the skeleton of a life, right? It's the records in between those dates that provide the muscle and the heartbeat. To really breathe life into these dates, you've got to hear this fantastic family anecdote that's been preserved through the generations. So, as an innkeeper, James would actually pit his young son, James Alexander Kemp, against hotel patrons in billiards. Most hotels of the era had these 3-cushion billiard tables. Well, James Abraham taught his boy to play, and then, in a brilliant bit of 19th century, hustling, he would pit the boy against all comers who walked into Kemp's hotel. It's colorful details exactly like this that instantly transform James from a dusty historical figure into a clever, spirited father running a really lively local joint. And he was a hard worker too. Land directories and census registries show a dynamic guy adapting his trades over the decades just to support his family. He didn't have just one career. In the 1855 records, he's listed as a farmer, a carpenter, and a joiner. By the 1870 Lavelle's directory, he's that innkeeper we were just talking about. Come 1880, on the birth registration of another son, Alfred, he's suddenly listed as a mechanic. We're seeing a man doing absolutely whatever it took in Norfolk County to thrive, completely pivoting his skills to meet the demands of the growing Canadian frontier. Now, let's put our genealogists' hats on and scan some actual 1871 census data. Just look at the fascinating story told in this household breakdown. We've got James, age 40, a Wesleyan Methodist of English origin. His wife Mary is 30, a Baptist of German origin. And if you look closely, you can see all 4 of their young children listed as Baptists. This tells us so much about the cultural melting pot of 19th century Canada. Plus, it hints at the household dynamics, right? With the children adopting their mother's religious denomination instead of their father's. It's a perfect little snapshot of a family frozen in time. Let's talk a bit more about the other half of this historical puzzle, his first wife, Mary Jane Sovereen. Her own rich lineage in Windham, Ontario, really formed the foundation for this growing family. Born in December 1840, she was the daughter of Alexander Sovereen and Elizabeth Putnam. So we're seeing deep, established roots in the region. Mary Jane wasn't just James's wife. She brought her own family's legacy, a strong agricultural background, and that Baptist faith right into their marriage. Understanding where she came from is absolutely crucial to getting the complete picture of this family's foundation. But here is where the story takes a rather sobering turn. The crucial point we need to look at is the stark contrast between their lifespans, which really highlights the severe vulnerabilities of life in 19th century rural Canada. James lived to be 71, had that long multi-trade career, and eventually remarried. Mary Jane, however, suffered a tragic early death at just 33 years old. She left behind 5 very young children: Sarah, Seymour, Melvina, Georgiana, and James Alexander. It's a harsh reminder of how rapidly family structures could just completely shatter due to the medical realities of the time. Her death certificate really grounds us in that historical hardship, revealing that a simple fever could abruptly tear a young mother away from her family. The records show she died on May 20, 1874, from typhoid fever, after being ill for 3 weeks. And get this, the attending physician was actually a relative, Dr. A.W. Sovereen. Just think about the sheer devastation that 3-week period wrought on the Kemp household. Today, typhoid is largely preventable and treatable, but back then, it was a sudden, lethal force that completely fractured a family's trajectory. So how do we actually know all of this? Well, it takes meticulous, active detective work to reconstruct these narratives. You have to systematically piece together baptisms, censuses, and property deeds to see the full picture. The source material for this story didn't just magically appear in a single diary. It was assembled by combining the 1851, 1861, and 1871 decennial censuses. It required tracking down Norfolk County legal papers, like this amazing 1871 writ of ejectment where James actually sued a man named Thomas Haley just to kick him out of Kemp's hotel. From birth registries to highly specific property disputes, this evidence trail is what turns isolated facts into living, breathing history. Fast forward to 1902, and we have one final, incredibly powerful piece of the puzzle, closing the loop on James's legacy. His 1902 will provides an eerie, tangible connection directly to his final wishes. Filed in the Norfolk County Surrogate Court after he passed away from heart failure, this document is literally his final voice on the historical record. When a genealogist finds a will, it's like striking gold. It doesn't just list assets, it reveals relationships, priorities, and sometimes long-held family tensions or profound acts of care. Right there on the record, he states, "I give, devise, and bequeath all my real and personal estate of which I may be possessed." And here's what he did with it. He specifically bequeathed exactly $5 to each of his older children, Sarah, Minnie, Georgiana, and James Alexander. Just $5. He then left the entire residue of his massive estate to his youngest son, Ernest Frank. Now, to modern ears, leaving your older children $5 sounds like a massive slight, right? But in a historical context, it was actually a common way of legally acknowledging them to prevent the will from being contested, while passing the physical property to the child who was still living at home and working the land. But there was one major condition attached to this inheritance. This final legal stipulation shows us James's protective nature right up to his very last breath, ensuring his second wife Melissa would be cared for. The estate went to Ernest Frank on the strict condition that he provide for his mother. It's a beautiful, legally binding act of devotion. Even after his heart failed him in 1902, James Abraham Kemp used the only tools available to him, the dense legal paperwork of his era, to ensure the survival of his spouse and to make absolutely certain she would be comfortable. So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this provocative thought. When historians look back 150 years from now, what story will your records tell? We've just seen how James and Mary Jane Kemp's entire lives were immortalized in little census boxes, directories, and a $5 will. Today, we leave behind massive digital footprints, emails, social media, digital banking. Will it be easier for the genealogists of the 22nd century to understand our daily hustle and our heartbreaks, or will our stories just get lost in all that noise? It's a fascinating reminder that every single form we fill out is a tiny piece of the legacy we leave behind.